Hey everyone, I'm Devash, the founder of Bombay Founders Club.
I'm Avik, principal at Riverwalk Holdings.
I'm a founder.
And I'm the funder.
And today I want to talk to you, Avik, about the oversmart VC analyst. Right? Just at the get-go, I want to say, I find it incredibly absurd that a 22-year-old, fresh graduate, right, who's not built anything for a day in their life, can look a founder in the eyes, somebody who's been building probably for years, has given their blood, sweat, and tears for their venture, and decide whether they live or die.
And half of them think they're on Shark Tank.
Yes, let's talk about that. What do you attribute this God complex of these analysts to?
So, Devash, I think there are a couple of things to unpack here. Let me kind of take the first one. The moment of an analyst, especially someone and I'm looking to kind of change that culture. Typically, your analyst is an overachiever, someone who's done a lot of work in their life, cracked an IIT, hit maybe an IIM, got into a point where they're an analyst at a VC firm.
Broken into
VC. So for them, it's like, you know what, we've hit some kind of lottery, we've hit some kind of jackpot. We're now on this massive career where we can start giving gyan and we can start telling people what to do, and somehow this is like a validation of all of our hard work. Now, what happens there is that if you look at the evolution of venture capital in the world, that's not the way it works. You typically have a lot of people who are coming into industry after doing good degrees, but also after working at companies, having a little bit of humility, having a little bit of work experience. Because I don't know about your first job, but my first one basically knocked any form of ego I had out of me.
Yeah, same. I mean, I just feel like when you're at that stage, an analyst is a glorified gatekeeper in most cases, right? Tell a founder that, listen, on the call, that, hey, I'm the analyst. This is just a preliminary conversation. There's a whole process above me. Because as a founder, right, your job is to know your business. Your job is not to know how a VC fund works, right? So if you're talking to somebody from a VC fund, you're talking to somebody from that VC fund. Like a founder will come and tell me, hey, I'm talking to Titan Capital, or I'm talking to this one, or I'm talking to Peak XV, right? They're not going to come and tell me, oh, I'm talking to this analyst or this associate or this partner, unless they happen to know one of the partners very closely and directly, right? And that just causes so many problems for founders.
So, Devash, that's where I'd push back a bit.
Okay.
I'd say that if you're a founder going out to fundraise, and if you told me this 20 years ago, I would have completely said, spot on, you're right. If you're telling me this today in 2025, where the Indian VC ecosystem is still young, we're barely out of our teens. I'd say it started formally around 2025 would be your advent of Indian VC. By now, 20 years of that, if you don't know the basics of how a fund works before you go fundraising, and remember, funds, I myself and a whole bunch of others, we write day in and day out. We write blogs, we write articles, we do chats like this to tell people how a VC fund works. If you have gone through none of that material and you're coming for fundraising, I'm sorry.
But then, Avik, you have founders who only watch that material and come to you and then you call them Delulu.
Okay, let's go a little deeper.
Yeah.
How does a VC fund work? What's your understanding?
So the way I understand it is a VC fund is an investment vehicle, right? So you had a fund manager. This person is somebody who believes that they have the right skill set to pick startups that will grow and grow exponentially, which are fundable, and that they have some other skill set where they can, or some unfair advantage where they can add value beyond that money.
I think that's one of the best definitions I've heard. Nailed it. So that's the basics of how a VC fund works. Somebody and a fund manager is typically someone who's achieved something. You've built a company or you've gone to a slightly senior post in a corporate career. You've really done well. You've excelled. And then you step out and say, hey, you know what? I want to support new companies. I feel that I can add some value. I can take this entrepreneur, help them, guide them, and help them grow their company. Not run it. God, no, not run it. And everyone should have their own thought process. Like Riverwalk, for example, We are very simple. We're like, we can get you revenue and we can help you with your go-to-market. We'll support you on everything else, but we're not the people who are going to be like, hey, can we strategize your next product launch? That's not us.
Yeah.
We are going to support you in getting new customers, getting new revenue, and being able to expand across, like from India to the other parts of the world. So most VCs tend to have that kind of skill set and specialized edge. If they don't, well, don't know if they're going to survive. But the way so for founders, what you have to remember is you have a fund manager, which traditionally becomes your managing partner or your founding partner. Below that, you have a variety of roles, which could be a junior partner, principal, vice president. They're all effectively the same thing, different names. Then you will have your associate, and then you'll have your analyst. Now, one thing to remember, and where a lot of founders get overly excited and very sad, is when they speak to an analyst, in their mind, they're speaking to X big fund. It's important to remember that an analyst's job, in most cases, is to go out there and sift through the breadth of India and figure out what's happening in every sector. So their job is to pick up the phone and call 100 founders a week, to understand what people are building, to know what's happening. So that first chat, and where the expectation mismatch happens, is when that happens. We use a dating app.
Yes.
Ever got excited when you find someone cool and you swipe right?
Yes.
They haven't swiped back.
No, fair.
But that feeling of swiping right is what happens when an analyst speaks to a founder. They think, yes, we're in touch with the fund. An analyst's job is to take that information, pass it upwards, showcase it within the fund, and then folks reach back.
Yeah. And Avik, that makes a lot of sense, right? I understand why that role exists. But why don't analysts tell this to founders? Why do analysts pretend like they're the sole in charge of like the entire fund corpus? Because you speak to a lot of them, that's the vibe you will get. Oh, yeah, bro, last week, we deployed, 10 crores in this startup and, for you, nothing.
I get the feeling. Right? I get the feeling.
I think we need to standardize analysts as, like on a call, they should come and say, hey, guys, this is what my role is and this is what I'm doing. So then there is no miscommunication or misinterpretation.
It's really important to unpack it. And you have some analysts who get this when they come into the role, and a large part also matters on the fund culture. If that fund has come in and said, hey, your job is to be respectful with founders, which is the ideal goal. You should be respectful. Your communication should be very, very kind, very courteous, very information seeking. That's the way it should work. On the flip side, I've seen analysts who have gotten on a call with a founder within about 10 minutes, said, you don't know how to build, you don't know what you're doing. You should take the idea in the back and shoot it.
Yeah, it's different, I think, when Kevin O'Leary says that on Shark Tank, because that man has actually built something with a lot of years of experience. It's kind of different when you say it as an analyst, right? In fact, one of the things which I find very interesting about VCs is that they'll never turn you down. They will always be like, oh, you're just too early for us. Not now. It's never a hard no. It's always a not now. And I think that culture does not flow through analysts.
Yes. Being able to give a soft reply is pretty important. We all say no for 100 reasons and we never say the word no. It's always one of the many that you have just shared.
Absolutely. In fact, I was speaking to a founder recently, and there were two of them, two co-founders, and they've been building for 7 years. All right. They've, one of them is a mother with a child. One of them moved from Kochi to Bombay. They've both had their struggles while building, a lot more than what I'm sharing right now. And they've managed to build that company for 7 years, managed to get it to a good revenue stream. And, they've raised a couple of rounds also before. I happened to be, on a call with them, and an analyst from a VC fund shows up. And within 2 minutes, this is what the analyst says. Yeah, I don't think there's founder market fit. I don't have faith in you guys.
Wow. That's scary.
Yeah. I told that analyst, I don't think anybody should have faith in your fund, and we logged off, obviously, because you have to have the last word. But what I mean to say is, because what they don't realize is that as a founder, right? So from a VC lens, when you're looking at companies, you're looking at us as checklists, you're looking at evaluation criteria, you're looking at numbers. For us, this is our lives.
Yes.
Right? So when you give us a comment to that, it's severely demotivating. Right? I actually had to just, take those founders out, really spend some time with them to ensure that they can get on another VC call because they were that demotivated. They're like, listen, are we just fundraising at the wrong time, etc. It really hurts anybody.
It's really sad, and I mean, first of all, that kind of a response should just never be given.
Yeah.
If that happened with me, and I'll share some examples of stuff that has, I would have just asked that person to reevaluate their future with the firm very, very quickly. Now, it tends to happen because when you, and I've seen this. So sometimes when I've been hosting like my team, and we're sitting down, and we are very inclusive across all the funds I've worked with. We've been very inclusive. We bring our team members in. We actually look and we unpack different ideas. Now, when I'm riffing with my partner, I can, yes, today I can somewhat look at a business and say, hey, X, Y, Z, this founder, this thing may work, may not work. Again, I'm probably right, maybe wrong. My job is to be right enough times to be able to return good capital to my investors. It's not to be right every single time. That's
Correct.
not the job. But I've seen that sometimes analysts get a little carried away. They're like, hey, if our partner and our principal can do it, then so can I. Now, what they miss is that those kind of comments have come on the back of 10, 15, 20 years of WorkX, on the back of seeing thousands of company decks, speaking to hundreds of founders on a yearly basis, sitting deep in those rooms, having made investments. I mean, I've invested from 12 companies of personal capital. I've seen 4 of them shut down within a couple of years of doing it. So, and that really hurts. So when your own money is going in. So when you see that happen, that gives you a lot of lessons, which is what we use to kind of make these quicker judgments.
Correct.
Of course, communication with the founder should always be absolutely polite. And generally, if you can, give a little bit of feedback on where you feel this could be better, what could kind of change the trajectory of the company. But the moment the analyst looks at it and says, oh, wow, this is Shark Tank. And, oh, now I can get on the call with the founder and give that same kind of quick fix analysis, that's where it breaks.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, Avik, you mentioned that if somebody did this, and they were working under you, they'd be fired or you'd not really like it. I want to know, what is the worst experience you've had with an analyst?
At a previous firm, I've walked in and the analyst is talking to a founder. Experienced founder, built a large company, make hundreds of crores of revenue, 1,000+ crore valuation. Founder themselves have spent about 15 years in their industry, about half of that building the company and half of that building experience in the domain. So you're talking to someone who's genuinely very experienced, and that particular founder is also really quite humble. I will say this though, that founder isn't your picture perfect founder. They are, English is not their natural first language. They're not super comfortable with that. And then you have an analyst coming from a nice foreign degree, rarefied, feeling very cool, and sits in that room with that founder. And I wasn't there, but I got to know from feedback from one of my other colleagues that they were basically demeaning some of the founders' ideas. They didn't come prepared on what the founder was going to present, on why they wanted to take a new lending license. And they didn't know why the founder was asking for this. They just said, okay, we will take notes. Why do you need this? What is this for? And it is effectively like a questioning scenario where they suddenly felt empowered that they have power over this founder and now they can get them to kind of dance to their tune. And when I heard this, it was a long conversation about attitude, thought processes, and which effectively led the same day for that analyst to part ways.
Wow. But what about all the founders that analyst had, spoken to and who never made it to your desk?
Could I get a paper bag?
You have a paper bag?
I'm going to just duck that one out. But You know what? We're talking about Delulu Analysts. You're the founder of Bombay Founders Club.
Yeah.
Tell me about Delulu founders.
I have a controversial opinion on this, Avik. I believe that founders need to be Delulu, and you should celebrate the Delulu ones.
Explain.
Today, starting a company or a startup is the stupidest thing a smart person can do statistically,
Why?
right? Because my odds of succeeding are probably,
Infinitesimal.
it's tiny, right? It's a long journey. It is not a 2-3 year flip where you're going to suddenly become a millionaire or a billionaire. It's a really long journey. You're going to have the most anxiety, the most loneliness, the most stress. You're only going to be dealing with fires because that is your job. And without often the necessary training, without often the necessary experience, you're kind of flying blind and just dreaming big. But if entrepreneurs don't do that, right, you will not have newer companies, newer industries, innovation. You need to have that delusion. In fact, I think Sam Altman once said that the most successful entrepreneurs he knows believe in themselves to the point of delusion.
I love that. I am completely a fan of a deluded founder saying, because building a company from scratch does take a little bit of insanity.
Yeah.
The point where I need that insanity to meet rationality is when you're deciding, when you're approaching a VC, when you're saying, hey, I want to go raise money, you better be ready. And I always say this, raising money is a balance between a story and numbers or proof. If you build a company that's selling 10 crores a month and doing it, hey, maybe even profitably, I don't care if you're 15. I'm going to have that chat with you and I might even fund you. But if you're coming to me with none of that, then you better have a very good story behind you on why you're the right founder, why you're the right team, why you're the right people to solve a particular problem. How did you identify it? What led you to find it? And why are you the right people to solve it? So that's where so when I say Delulu, that's kind of what I mean. Where I've had founders try to slide into my messages with, I am going to build $1 trillion new company. Fantastic. Let's talk. I am going to build better homes than DLF. Even better. I am 22. You have no real estate experience. You have no land. You have no backing. You've never worked with the construction industry. You don't know that it's one of the hardest industries to deal with in a country like India. Why should I even talk to you?
I think which is fair. And see, I agree with that process. If you feel that somebody is not worth talking to, do not talk to them. But it is unfair for somebody to get on a call and then leave it in 2 minutes. It's like today, if you're meeting somebody for the first time for a date, right? You can't leave before appetizers. You can leave before dessert.
Always have coffee.
That's a smart tip.
Yeah. So when it comes to these, I think the delusion of the world, a lot of times founders feel almost entitled to capital, and that's something that gets me a little riled.
Yeah.
Because you and I have been talking about this and how hard it is to raise a VC fund. It's not easy. It's not a vacation, unfortunately. I wish it was. So when it comes to that, we have VC fund partners are also founders. They're founders of a VC fund. So when we're looking at that, and then we see some founder come who feels like they're entitled, where they're like, oh, my company is suddenly worth $20 million. What have you done? I've sold 10 lakhs worth of chips. Like, no, you're not. It's really not there. And how much do you know about the history of VC in the US?
I know a little bit, but I'm sure not as much as you.
I want to jump there a little.
Okay.
Sequoia Capital, which is today arguably one of the most well-known brands in the world and successful. Don Valentine's first investment was in a tiny company called Atari, which I'm guessing most of the audience may not have heard of. It was one of the original gaming companies, like game design companies. They made Pong, which is your little table tennis game with two little sticks sliding around on a screen. They made Tank, where you're just driving around like a tank, shooting other tanks. And those are some of their first games that they created. And when their founder, Nolan Bushnell, went out to raise money from Don Valentine, he had come on the back of selling $3 million of his previous game. Back in 1972, the man sold $3 million of a video game and then started building Atari and went to raise capital. And they were just two first-time engineers working in that company. Their names happen to be Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak.
Yeah. And what happened with them? Did they also get funding by Sequoia?
Yes, they did. And they built Apple Computer.
Yeah. No, that is impressive. But I get the spirit of the VC. Okay, I get all of that stuff. Avik. But at the same time, today some hairy, audacious ideas, right? I kind of feel that somebody in their 30s with 15 years of work ex may not be in the correct position to be that hairy and audacious with their ideas as somebody who is 21. So how do you solve for that? And in fact, in the US, you have a Y Combinator which says this, that you come to us at idea stage and we will throw, a couple of $100,000 with you, at you or a little more and just give it a shot, right? Try it out, get revenue. They'll also mentor you, coach you. Why don't we have that kind of a culture in India?
So we talked about it a little earlier that VC in India is just out of its teens.
Yeah.
It's 20 years old.
Yeah.
A 20-year-old isn't smart. A 20-year-old is still very dumb.
Yeah.
A 20-year-old isn't mature. And a 20-year-old is also dirt poor.
Correct.
So we're quite broke. And that's encapsulating a bit of the reality of the Indian ecosystem. Today, we are still in an absolute nascency. We had this year, I think Indian VC raised close to $4 billion. That's probably like one and a half AI companies in the US today, just in terms of sheer numbers. The funds raised by VC funds this year is less than like 1.5 funding rounds in the US for a startup. So that's just giving you a little bit of proportion of how far the divide is. And that divide is a time divide. You can't catch up to about 60 years at 20. But that being said, what you just said makes a lot of sense. And I think there are a lot of folks building smaller incubators, building accelerators, places where you can get access to that first check, to just get that first shot to build a company.
Because I think it's super important to know where you can get that first check, because I think once you've raised that one round, you kind of know the landscape a lot better, normally. Unless, of course, it's a friends and family round and you've just taken it from friends, then maybe you may not still have an idea of the landscape. But that first check, I think, really teaches you a lot, doesn't it?
It really does. And the fear that a lot of funds have is that when that check gets deposited, what's going to happen next? And I think we've seen some spectacular kind of blow-ups in the Indian ecosystem, which have led to kind of an over push on governance, where a lot of us want to be tracking kind of every penny you're spending, where's this rupee going, where's that going, and how are you using it. And that's come from a lot of pain.
Yeah. But do you think that's the correct way for a VC fund to operate?
I definitely think it's an overcorrection.
Yeah.
And I think hopefully that we're going to come back to an equilibrium where there's enough freedom given to teams to experiment, innovate, fail, which is a very important part of, building a company. You have to be able to fail at a few things and then come back.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
So, Devash, something like a club that you're building today, it's not really a club. It's why did you start the Bombay Founders Club?
Because I wanted to chill with more founders. And I wanted to learn from more founders, because one of the things I realized is, when I was at Columbia, which is arguably one of the best law schools in the world, I realized that I'm not there for the professors. I am not there for the classes, because everything that they're telling me, I already knew, or I knew how to get to learn, right? They're teaching me off a textbook, which I can buy. I was there for my peer group. I was there because I was sitting next to somebody who was an Egyptian judge, somebody who was a Kazakhstani prosecutor, somebody who's done commercial law in Australia, somebody who has a deep understanding of Austrian and European law. And that perspective really helped me grow. So that was why Bombay Founders Club came into being, right? And I think this is kind of the problem with VCs. Like we need to create a culture where we have a little bit of a, for lack of a better word, fuck around and find out attitude, right? Like we can't be so conservative that, oh, come with revenue, come with, everything and only then talk to me, because then you're not a VC fund.
Then we are private equity?
Yeah, I mean, we call it whatever, but the idea is you're supposed to back the next, you're supposed to back somebody when nobody else backs them.
So effectively, we need kind of a guidance or coaching school taking you up to like a bigger league.
Yeah, let me give you the example of India and Pakistan in cricket. Right? I'm a massive cricket fan. Now, both of these teams play international cricket. I'm sure everyone's aware. And for the longest of times, the Pakistani team, I think, had a better track record against India in their bilateral series, etc. But then what India did is we went very deep in grassroots, right? So somebody in rural India also can get picked up. There are scouts who go looking for talent. And if the second you have a little bit of talent, right? Say you have a good arm swing, you have, your bat speed is good, etc. They'll put you in a place where now you're playing with other great cricketers. And that is how you build up a system where you get a Jasprit Bumrah out of it, right? And Pakistan, on the other hand, was like, oh, if you're good, once you're good and at our level, then you come to us, right? And look at where the Pakistani cricket team is. And that's my problem a lot of times when I look at Indian VCs. Like, you can't expect somebody to go from crawling to walking to running on their own without support and then be like, yeah, once you're Usain Bolt, then you come to me, I'll fund you.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got something to learn from that, definitely. You know what? I would also say that there is an overemphasis today on kind of founder pedigree. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I went to an Ivy League institution. It taught me practically nothing relevant to what I'm doing today.
That's very good to know for everybody.
It is what it is. No, I'm being very upfront, right? Like, pedigree does not matter because, in fact, pedigree works against you as a founder. In practice.
How so?
Okay. Today, somebody who studied in IIT and IIM, okay, when they go to the job market, they're listening to a lot of yeses.
Typically.
Right? These are overachievers. How many times have these people heard no?
Not that often in life.
Right? And as a founder, what do you hear the most?
No, you need to be thick-skinned.
Right? So, would I think that an IIT, IIM guy who always has that cushy thing of, oh, if this doesn't work out, I have a 1 crore job waiting or a 50 lakh job waiting. Will that person be resilient enough, or somebody with a fire in their belly who doesn't matter? They will push through 10,000 no's to get that 1 yes.
That's a cool way of looking at it.
Right? I mean, because this is something that I realized when I started building that. When I was a lawyer, I think there were very few firms in India where I would not get some kind of a employment. Right? Yes, they may employ me at one level, junior, senior, whatever. They may negotiate pay. But being from Nalsar, being from Columbia, there was this sense that I could walk into a lot of places and get, I could kind of pick and choose where I want to work. Right? Coming from that to hearing no's all the time wasn't easy. Very hard.
Very, very interesting perspective. So effectively, the less of a pedigree you come from, the more resilient you are to kind of push through things.
All I'm trying to say is I don't think pedigree is a factor at all.
Is a factor at all. Fair enough.
Right? You can give statistics and show that, oh, so many IIT, IIM guys, have made such good companies. My argument would be those are the guys that got funded.
It would be really fun. You kind of take a little corpus, let's say like 100 crores each.
Yeah.
And say, hey, one entire set is only for founders coming with the smallest of background. Hey, you've come from a tiny city, tiny college, worked at very, very simple firm, but you've got that fire in your belly to kind of grow. And the other one is playing around with someone almost apples to apples in terms of age, work ex, but with that fancy schmancy pedigree
Yeah.
and see which one kind of works out better.
I know where I would place my bets because a 2x2 matrix hasn't gotten a customer for anybody.
Nice.
So, Avik, a lot more to talk about with VCs and founders. I'd love to know, what are some of the games that you think VCs play with founders? Because I've heard a lot from the founder perspective. Would love to hear it from the VC perspective.
Okay, so after I answer this, I'm going to then disappear from the city for a week because people are going to want to kill me. But there, unfortunately, are some games that people play. One of the most common ones is dragging you till the end of your runway. So what does this mean? When you're going out to fundraise, a lot of founders, and this is especially with first-time founders who aren't really very good at managing their cash flow in that sense, they tend to say, hey, we've got 3 months of money left in the bank, or we've got 4 months of money left in the bank. And then they go out to fundraise. That is dangerous. Folks, if you can do it, try and raise when you've got a year's worth in your bank, if you can do it. The next best thing is every month less. So you go out to raise money when you're comfortable, when you know you don't have pressure, when you have enough time. You can talk to a VC for 4, 5, 6 months without worrying that your company is going to be shutting down. What a lot of funds do is we do have access to some amount of data. We know your last funding round. We can generally get a sense on when your money is going to be running out. A few people wait till that nth moment when you are just close to, your lights are going to go off, and then slip you that term sheet with a way, way cheaper valuation than you deserve. That's one of the dirtiest but most common games I've ever seen played.
Yeah. Do you think that is a negotiation tactic, or do you find that unethical at its core?
I find it unethical. I feel that, yes, in business, typically, you're always looking to negotiate, you're looking to optimize and kind of get the best damn deal you can. But in this particular space, and one of the reasons that I love venture capital, I love VC, I love private investing, is this is one of the few industries in the world where both of us can win together.
Yeah.
I only win as a VC when you win as a founder, when the company wins, when everybody wins.
So you've never ever kicked out a founder of a company?
I have come very, very close. Come very, very close. Kicking out a founder is the absolute last thing a VC ever wants to do, because we don't want to run the company. That's the point of why we're investing. We're not probably the right people to run the company.
Yeah.
The skill sets that take to make a good investor do not necessarily make you a good CEO, and may not make you the best CEO for that particular company at that particular point in time. When we do have to come to the points where it's a choice where we have to ask a founder to exit, and that's a very painful time, I've seen it happen across the board, is when the founders are doing a couple of things wrong. The first one is an ethical breach. I think everyone will agree that's a straight door.
Yeah.
The second one that tends to happen is when the founder isn't managing or growing the company at the pace that's needed. That's where you have a lot of conversations beforehand. You try and align on why that growth is not coming. And sometimes the right answer is maybe we're doing something wrong. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and again and hoping for a different result. If that same thing is not giving you a different result, you need to do something different.
Yeah.
And if that founding team hasn't been able to do it, for whatever reason, maybe they've not been able to grow as fast as the company's grown. Maybe they've not been able to expand their horizons. Or very often, it could even just be personal challenges. It's a human business. It happens.
Yeah.
Those are situations where you have to have that hard conversation and look at bringing in.
Could you talk to me about one of the times when you've seen this happen up close and really, I'd love to know more about it.
It's something I cannot go into specifics on any company.
No, not specifics in the company, just the story, like what happened, what was it like?
Sure. So one of the cases I've seen this happen was when there were 3 founders, which is actually the optimal number of founders you need. The company had a few other methods of getting revenue, which included selling assets that the CEO founder did not want to sell. They said, hey, this particular asset on branding, we never want to put on the market. And all of us as investors, as the other founders, we were all like, hey, if you start monetizing this, you suddenly go from burning, 1 crore a month to burning, let's say, 30 lakhs a month. That means that money that you have in the bank, you've now tripled your runway. If it was 12 months, you now get 3 years, you get 36 months out of this money in the bank. If you just let go of that ego that I want my branding here. And that ego clash kept happening. And see, when everything's going well, nobody questions.
Yeah.
It's when you hit a speed bump, when you suddenly hit a pause in growth, that's when that burn started looking a little unsustainable. We're like, hey, now this company's burn is, your runway is now gone from 12 months to 6 months. You have to recalibrate, sell that asset. And that founder was just, I don't want to do it. That's when we had to come together as a board and take a hard call.
No, makes sense. Also, I was speaking to a few founders, and especially I'm talking about founders who raised in 2020, 2021, right? Of course, valuations were very high at the time, which I understand, but also, I think sometime around 21, 22, the VC community had some kind of realization that we need to recalibrate, right? And there's this one founder I know who told me that he said that for the last few months, the only thing that the VCs have told me is that grow. We want more users on the app no matter what.
Spend all the money.
And overnight, they're like, market dynamics have changed a little bit and we need PAT positivity. Basically, we want you to be profitable. And that founder looked at them and said, this is not a change. This is a strategic, directional change. You can't ask this from me overnight. So what would you do in a case like that?
So the world works in business cycles.
Yeah.
And I'm going to almost dial back to one of my favorite companies that I've had the privilege to invest in, a company called Posist, today called Restoworks. Founded by a rare combo of a husband and wife duo who did not kill each other, seeing each other day in, day out, in office and at home.
Yeah.
Sakshi and Ashish Tulsian. They built a company called Posist, which is today called Restoworks. A phenomenal company, powers 20,000 plus restaurants around the world. Very, very good numbers. They're stunning. When I had the privilege to invest in them, this is around 2014. The founders had come to Bombay and they were building restaurant management software with no background in hospitality. They were actually they were just software developers. And they had seen the pain points that small restaurants, small bars actually faced in terms of managing pilferage, in terms of managing accounts, in terms of managing your inventory. So they built a small solution, started selling it very, very small scale, selling it to people in the neighborhood, then selling it to people around the area, then based out of Noida and Delhi. And suddenly they woke up and said, hey, this is a much better business than our software business. So let's make this our business. When they came to Bombay, I was a young kid, no experience, but I was running a single family office.
Were you the oversmart VC analyst?
Maybe. But I think the one thing I knew was what I don't know. So I brought a bunch of friends into the room who owned and operated restaurants and bars. Sat them down, did a little mini Shark Tank session, but very polite, where they were pitching, they were explaining their product. And I'm looking at some of my friends who have the best poker faces in the world, just going like, I have that problem. I faced that yesterday. And for me, that was product market fit. I was like, I don't need anything else. If these guys have dropped their guard and they are giving visible signals to someone who's trying to sell them that we are going to buy, I was like, this is a brilliant product market fit.
Why don't all VCs do this? Why don't all VCs get like your potential customers in the room and just see their reaction?
It's a really simple tactic. More people should try it.
Yeah.
So when we invested, after that came a bull run growth. So 2000, I would argue that this growth at all costs came way before 2020.
Yeah.
It started in the 2015, 2016.
Where did it come from? Like, what is the genesis of this growth at all costs? Because at least in India, we did not have that tradition of companies blowing up money.
Yes.
Right? Like, I'm Marwadi. If my grandfather operated in a burn, it was considered loss.
And I'm Gujarati, I will be shot as well.
Exactly.
So We started borrowing a lot from the Silicon Valley playbook. We started borrowing a lot from the American playbook. And the second piece is that we overestimated the TAM of India.
So, could you tell me a little bit more about the Silicon Valley playbook?
Sure. So the Silicon Valley playbook is very, very driven around acquire users, get them hooked to whatever you're selling, whether it's software, whether it's chips, whether it's a music system, get them hooked, and then they will continue consuming your product.
Correct.
And become large customers. Now that's predicated on a thought process that you have a very big market. It's been firmly established that India is not one country when it comes to a market. It is split amongst 5, 6. I mean, Bloom did a very, very good breakdown on India 1, India 2, India 3. I'd argue that there are 5 Indias in an economic spectrum in this country. And a lot of VCs and a lot of foreign capital was pouring in at that kind of time. There were a few animals that came in. There were a few other folks that came in and suddenly said, hey, let's start doing... There was a fund that was doing a deal a day.
What?
One single investment every day.
Wow.
And their due diligence was being conducted by a bunch of 22-year-old analysts at a consulting company. So whenever they looked at that gigantic number, 1.4 billion, and said, hey, if we multiply this by X, by Y, this percentage of people who are going to start buying, boom, magic. Go burn, get all of these customers. Very quickly, I think people realized that the markets are very, very different. And that reality check started coming back. Like, Devash, what is a startup?
There are several definitions to a startup. My understanding of a startup is something which you're looking to start or have just started, which will, and you're looking to scale it exponentially faster than a traditional business would grow, right? With a large scope. So say something which could either, if it's a B2B startup with a fewer customers, maybe make billions of dollars in revenue at some point, or...
What's the end goal of a startup?
To make money.
Perfect. That's the definition of a business.
Yeah.
A startup is nothing but a business. And there was a point in time when everybody went on this fever dream of low interest rates and like zero interest rate in the US. Money is coming easily. People are throwing capital at each other. So let's all just keep doing like pumping money and seeing what happens. And the cost, the real human cost of that, we never took into account, which is the fact that founders don't know better. If your VC is sitting on your board and telling you burn and grow and burn and grow, I feel so bad, but I can completely relate when you said that that's what your founders were told by VCs. We were complicit where we said, hey, just keep growing. And suddenly when the funding pipelines started tightening, when our pipelines of money started tightening because our investors started going like, hey, we've given you a lot of money. You seem to have blown a lot of it up. Are we going to get any of it back? And that's when suddenly becoming...
No one ever thought of that.
Oh, you have to return the money. No, nobody knew. And that's when that tap started tightening. And a whole bunch of founders who had just been told, go out, burn. We're there for you. We've got the next check. Was suddenly like, can you please make your business PAT positive tomorrow?
That's crazy. I mean, it's lovely how an entire industry was wrong, right, at the time.
Absolutely.
But also, Avik, since then, I think the number of VC funds in India, as an absolute number, has increased significantly over the last 2-3 years, right?
It's mushroomed. It's really become... I was at a summit organized by IVCA, the Indian Venture Capital Association, last year, where we were looking at the amount of micro VCs in India. And if you dial back all the way down to 2012-13, which is when, I kicked off my investing career, there were maybe 10 like micro VCs in India, another 10 foreign funds, maybe 30 family offices that invested in startups. Nobody else in the world knew what those are.
Yeah.
And today, you can easily just add a couple of zeros to all those numbers and say that that's the amount of people that are investing in this country today.
Correct.
So when there was a big boom, that 2020 to 2022, the craziest thing happened is that, hey, we all want this investment. Like, Devash, you'll be like, I will pay 10 bucks for this investment. And then I'll come in and be like, I can pay 20. And don't get me wrong, the founders at that point in time also have a role to play. I understand the need to maximize your valuation, but it's very important to remember that valuation is a number that you eventually have to grow into. And people forgot that. They were like, hey, no, let's just grab as much capital as we can. Let's just take whatever we can get and we'll figure it out later. In that same period, there were a whole bunch of disciplined companies and disciplined founders, typically folks who come with a bit of experience, which is where I push back on your young enthusiasm, who are like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense.
But Avik, isn't the experienced VC supposed to like not give that valuation in the first place?
They were still teenagers. They weren't 20 yet.
But that can't be the answer to everything, right? Because that's not what you tell your LPs.
So I agree, and which is where you see that's what VC is a business of outliers.
Correct.
Your top 10% of VCs make pretty much all the returns. Will give you back, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times your money. Everybody else is going to steadily sink downwards. So even in that time, you'd see that there are a whole bunch of funds that were capital conservative, that were holding on to their capital. They're like, hey, you know what? In this kind of inflated market, let's just not deploy. Let's just, for 2 years, kind of taking like a Warren Buffett attitude to this. If the market is overvalued, don't deploy money. And those VCs today are reaping the benefits of having that discipline.
Makes a lot of sense. One of the other things, I think that recently a lot of founders have been coming and telling me, and which I've also experienced, is a lot of VCs, not family office, not angel investors, but VCs, coming and telling founders, oh, we will invest. We like your company. We like you. We like the traction, everything. But we will only invest after you have found a lead investor.
Fair enough. So this is something that happens a lot, and it's very important to understand a fund's dynamic. There are some funds that are built, and I'll admit it, I'll be open. Riverwalk is a fund that's built to be the second investor on a cap table. But however, we treat it a little differently. We don't say that this means that we are going to wait till you bring some fancy lead in and then we'll tag along. We will go out, we will find you as like an amazing founder. We say, hey, we really like you. This is our term sheet. This is the broad terms. You can use this to go and build around. And if you don't have relationships with other funds, we will help you go and build those relationships and bring that lead in.
No, which is fair. But without giving that term sheet, just saying get a lead and then come back to me, does that justify the genesis of VC?
That happens a lot, and I will say that those folks are cowardly.
But then what is that management fee for? I'm seriously asking, right? Because why wouldn't the LPs just invest in a larger fund then?
Yeah, if you don't have the guts to kind of build your own thesis, to go out there and back your own gut, you really shouldn't be kind of building in this space.
Yeah. Another grouse rather that a lot of founders seem to have with a bunch of VCs is, see, the color of money is green, right? At the end of the day, money is money. What is the unfair advantage that a VC is supposed to give you, right? And that's not talked about enough, right? Because especially in India, the power dynamic is so warped between VCs and founders that not enough VCs are talking about this is our unfair advantage for the companies. They may talk about it with their LPs, but this needs to be spoken about more, right? Like founders need to be asking VCs, what do you bring to the table apart from the money?
I am seeing that happening more and more today.
I'm so glad.
I'm loving it because we have gone through that one cycle where you've got a lot of folks who have built that first generation of companies, who have been in a Zomato, in a Flipkart, in a Fractal Analytics, in a Zoho. Even though Zoho is not funded, they've worked there. They've worked at these companies that have gone from nothing and become something. One of my former colleagues from DirectEye is part of the founding team that built Postman, which is today like a couple of $1 billion company that's moved to the US and powers almost every API backend sitting for companies.
Correct.
So you have this set of people who have now worked at different companies that have a set of experience. That these experienced founders, their first question to a VC is, what are you bringing to the table? And
Correct.
money is not it.
But I'll tell you, Avik, honestly, those founders can take care of themselves. Like, those are not the founders that need to be told this, right? I'm worried about that 25-year-old founder who has worked for a few years somewhere, but is really eager getting out there, and they don't know this. They don't know that, oh, I'm supposed to get an unfair advantage. And they get shortchanged in the process.
So I completely agree. And a lot of that comes from, I agree, some part of it is desperation for capital. I need money. Whoever's willing to give it to me, I'll take it and figure it out. Even at that age, I met some folks who still want to know, what am I getting in exchange for this money? Because VC is it's like a marriage. You're together for 10 years.
Yeah.
You're going to be sitting day in, day out. As much as you're going to be meeting your co-founders, you're going to be meeting your investors at some point more than your friends, for sure. So if you're getting into that relationship with the VC, speak to other people who have raised capital from them. Ask them to introduce you to people who, of course, they'll have some success stories, someone who love them and they love. Speak to founders who've failed. Speak to founders who've taken their money and then those companies have shut down. Ask them, in that situation, when you were going down, did these guys ghost you? Did they pick up the phone? Were they standing by your side? Were they ready to support you? That is the difference between a brilliant VC and an average one.
That makes a lot of sense, Avik. And I hope that a lot more founders will start asking these questions and doing this DD themselves, right? Because DD is not supposed to work just one way. You spoke about investing being like a marriage, right? But we've made a circus out of the courtship. You have the Shark Tanks of the world, which in many ways have done great things for entrepreneurship. But what do you like? I'd love for you. I mean, we've had this conversation before, but I'd love for you to tell everyone, what is the difference between like a Shark Tank pitch that you see on TV and an actual VC conversation look like?
Absolutely. Good point. Because I think a lot of people's first starting point is Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And I have to call this out. One of my favorite things that's happened in India, in some sense, is Shark Tank. Not for the glitz, not for the glam, not for the funding, but because it has turned becoming a founder into something Dadi will be proud of.
Exactly. And it's also given a generation the right to dream in many ways.
Yeah. It's let people see that, you can come from anywhere, you can come from anything and you can build a company.
Yeah.
But now let's get to the show itself.
Yeah.
That's not how VC works.
Correct.
Everyone, when you're watching a show on TV, you have to remember, it is going to drive viewership. It is trying to become viral. It's trying to become sensational.
Yeah.
And all of the scripts, all of the editing, a lot of the dhamal and dhoom that happens on the show, that's part of a script. Even I know a few of the folks personally, and when people say, oh, they're dicks on the show, they're just being mean. I know those folks aren't like that in real life. A lot of that is persona.
Yeah.
And even kind of the questions that they ask, a lot of the banter, that's what a lot of people don't realize is just about 30%, I think about 30% of the companies that go on Shark Tank actually get funded. And there's a big reason. It's not because the VCs are backing out. It's not because the sharks are backing out on their commitment. It's because after that, you have this beautiful real life thing, which you did in your law when you were a lawyer for a while, which is due diligence, which is when you actually analyze, look at the company. Hey, you said you were doing 1 crore a month. I can only see, your average monthly sales is 50. Yeah, I did 1 crore in Diwali. That's not 1 crore a month. That's not 1 crore MRR. You hit 1 crore once as a bonus in Diwali. So the moment that diligence comes through, that offer may become half.
Yeah.
And then the founder's like, but you made this offer on TV. You should honor the offer. We're honoring the offer based on 1 crore a month, not honoring the offer based on 50 lakhs a month.
That makes sense. In fact, I've also spoken to quite a few founders who got funded by the sharks, and a lot of them wish they just hadn't taken that. I won't lie, because they're just terrible deals.
A lot of people, so I've seen a few companies that have come out from there. And in fact, one of my personal portfolio has gone through Shark Tank. And the reason, I spent some time talking to the founder, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Founder had a simple perspective. I have no credibility in the Indian market today. People don't know who I am. In fact, just forget finding new customers. Getting a vendor to agree to give me a 30-day credit period is very, very hard. And that's the reality of building in India. It's a low trust environment. People don't want to extend credit to a new company.
Yeah.
Founder went on Shark Tank, gave away, I think, 5 or 10% of the company for a ridiculously tiny amount of money.
Yeah.
Came out. Suddenly, vendors who had ghosted them for a year are picking up the phone saying, "Sir, do mahine ka credit. Le. Start buying from us." Forget consumer. I'm saying the customer pipeline became huge. Vendors were lining up to work with this guy. So that's one big advantage.
You think it has a very strong signaling effect?
Signaling effect. Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. Like one of the things that a lot of founders are told before they go on Shark Tank is to say yes to the deal, even if you're not going to take it. Because that's you are more likely to get aired because they actually shoot a lot more episodes than they actually.
Yeah, so. And if you're looking at it, if you're giving away that 10% of your company for 1 crore, rather than like you may say I should have been valued, that 10% should be worth 10 crores. The other 9, a smart founder going on to Shark Tank will budget the other 9 as marketing expense. This is my customer acquisition cost. This is my vendor acquisition cost. This is media and PR that I would not be able to buy with 9 crores. There's no way you'd be able to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the whole of India is talking about it.
Yeah.
Right. Avik, I want to talk about something which is a little painful probably to talk about. But I've spoken to a few founders where they've signed the term sheet with a VC. And you know where this is going. And for months on an end, they've either been led on, strung on, or just ghosted at some point. And the money's never hit the bank. They've never actually closed the deal. And I understand, I would still understand a VC ghosting a founder very early on in the conversations, right? At some point, yes, I understand there's a very high deal flow. If you're not interested, you're not interested. But if to get to that term sheet stage, you've done a lot of legwork, right? And post that, if you decide to go back on it, why would
So, thanks. This is a really thorny topic, so I'm gonna kind of navigate it as delicately as I can.
Yeah.
There are a few reasons. I'm gonna kind of start with maybe the most controversial one. A lot of funds, when you see this fund X has launched with $100 million fund. That doesn't mean they have the $100 million. It means they may have closed with a $10 million or a $15 million amount. So they are also raising the fund while they are deploying the fund. This is extremely common. So it's not a red flag. But a lot of folks pull the trigger way too early. Usually a smart fund would do their first close, say we're ready to invest. When they know, I've got about 50% committed, I have about 25% I can take today. So you at least got an eye on half the fund. And then there are a few fund managers who do that when they have 10% of the fund. That's one big case where sometimes the fund just doesn't have the juice or the capital to make that deal happen. Other times, it's a lot of buyer's remorse. You've done all the work, you've committed to an investment, and then suddenly the new shiny thing has come ahead and you're like, oh, that looks so much better. I should do that. So then you want to just ride this timeline out, let this term sheet die, and sadly, maybe let the company die, and then you'd go on to the second one. Both of these first two, I bucket as extremely unethical, which is, you won't see funds that people talk about in a good light doing this. As a VC, when we're signing that term sheet, we are very cognizant that this is our reputation on the line. So folks whose reputation is, who care about their reputation will not do something like this.
Yeah.
Other folks may.
Yeah, and the sad part is a lot of other founders will not know about these instances because they're so under the rug. Only if you speak to those founders who have been ghosted, and it's since they've not closed the deal, you can't even see it on public sources that this fund is invested in this founder. It's just so hard to find out about this.
It's the information arbitrage, the how opaque the entire space is painful. It's really sad that, and also it's because of the power dynamic. So few people are willing to ask about their VCs. So few other founders are willing to talk about their investors. Whether the experience was, usually if it's great, you'll be like, it's great. But if it's bad, very few people have the courage, and I don't blame them, because the incentives for going out and saying, hey, this was a terrible experience, versus just being quiet. The incentives are stacked towards being quiet.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, I think a lot of funds have now started coming out and saying, "Oh, we're very founder friendly. Oh, we invest in people, not companies." I don't know. A lot of us founders call bullshit on that.
So, I think that it has to transition in a way where I will openly say I'm company friendly first. When I'm looking at a company, I am looking at it from a holistic sum of its parts. If the founders are rock star, but your head of sales is terrible and your head of marketing is terrible, it's not, that's not a company. That's a really cool influencer-led brand. That's not a company. So when you're looking at a company, you need to look at the sum of its parts. What's the product? Is the product good quality? Are they doing something different? Are the founders the right people? Do they have the next layer in place to kind of build? Now, where that people piece comes from is after about 13 years of investing, I've come to one conclusion. It's, you could have the best idea on the planet. You could even have a really decent company that's getting some traction. But if the founders aren't strong enough to evolve, grow, resilient enough to kind of survive those really, really painful parts that everybody in building a startup has, then that company won't survive. So when we say we're people first, that's one piece of what we're evaluating. Are those founders capable of this? Are they going to be able to drive this till the end? And that's still something that if you go around the world and ask like some of the biggest VCs, it still comes down to, hey, we are looking at the founder. As you go up in scale, like when you're investing more and more money, like when you're investing at a Series B, let's say a company that's doing 20 crores of revenue versus 100 crores of revenue versus 200, then that narrative shifts more towards looking at what the company is doing.
All right. And what is a founder-friendly VC fund?
So there are a few things here. I think it's just don't be an ass. That it's as simple as that. If you like, don't screw the poor founder on every clause. Don't make their lives miserable. A lot of folks think that a founder should live on some sort of ramen and like hostel budget. And there's a lot of fights. In fact, I know I've had a lot of fights with people on this. I'm like, if the person isn't sleeping comfortably at night, that does not mean you can take your market salary. Sorry, there is a sacrifice that you're making when you're building a company. But you should be able to sleep comfortably. You should be able to feed yourself and your family comfortably, and you should not be like stressed every single day about how am I going to pay rent. That's like what I'd say is a founder-friendly kind of approach.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But a lot of funds claim to be founder friendly, but then later on they choose not to. So I just don't understand that narrative. Like, why try and purport something? Just say we're a VC fund and we're here to make money, man.
I think there's a secret VC school that teaches us to say the opposite of everything.
Yeah, one of the things that at BFC, I think a lot of founders love listening to. Like, this is our, it's. I think you can call it a slightly sadistic pleasure. Is, because we've seen so many founders grow insanely, right? And I'll give you a small example. Like, I'm not saying that BFC's grown any point, but like a year ago when I was at conferences, etc., and I was just meeting people, right? We connect on WhatsApp, etc., and then they'd ghost you. And now 1 year later, they're like, "Oh, hey, Devash, we haven't actually caught up this year. We should catch up." And when VCs do this to like founders who've grown even more, because like at the start they're like, hey, "This is not going to work," and then when they realize it's working, they're like, "Oh, hey, founder, do you want to come for a beer?" And the founder's just like, "Nah, bro." We love hearing those stories. I think it's a sadistic pleasure that some of us get.
It makes absolute sense. If you were an ass to somebody last year, and now you're chasing them because they're doing well, and you wanna ride on the coattails of that success, that sucks. That feeling sucks. Which is like also why I think so many of us calibrate those messages that we end with. And we can't do this for everyone. Like, an average fund receives anywhere between 20 to 100 decks a day. So there's no way we can spend our time supporting each one of those founders that we say no to. But if you can if you can help even like one person a week that you're not investing in, but you're saying, hey, I can make this intro for you. I can support you here. Just do a little bit out there.
Yeah.
I think that kind of changes the game.
Yeah. Speaking of intros, there is this, a lot of founders have told me this, and I believe a lot in the concept of social capital, building a network, increasing your surface area. And I know that warm intros are a big thing in the VC ecosystem, right? Because credibility flows through and through. But I'm just curious, as a business perspective, it does not make the most sense to over-rely on warm intros. They can also become a little bit of a toxic circle, right? It's the reason why you may have a Flipkart mafia, the reason you may have like a PayPal mafia. It's because that's such a massive unfair advantage they have in terms of access to capital, or people, who are the gatekeepers for capital. If that was more democratized, do you think, if the warm intro thing was just thrown out of the window completely, do you think that would improve the way VC works?
I have mixed views on this. Very,
Okay.
very mixed views.
Okay.
So if I look at some of the best performing companies, and when we say best, again we could go back to the argument of they had access to capital.
Yeah.
But if you look at like companies that have really done well, let's say in a VC portfolio of a 30 company portfolio, where you have had some cold people reaching out, you have met a few people at an event, you've reached out to some founders. I've tended to see that there are two superior buckets which come in, and both of them have almost an equal chance of success. The first one is obviously warm intros, and the second one is where you have said, I, as a fund, and very few funds actually do this, the sheer amount of work this takes. We built our own thesis saying, and we do it at Riverwalk. We built our own thesis and said that we are going to go out and find the best founding team that has the right to win in that space. So that's typically where most of our companies come from. Though I am meeting some founders this weekend, and these folks cold followed me and message. And first time I responded, I was like, hey, it doesn't sound very interesting. Then they sent me some data. Then I spent some time on the space. Then they pushed me again. They said, hey, meet. I was like, I can't meet, but I'll do a quick call. I did a quick call, and they had survived COVID. This company is in the co-living and managed living space. So you can imagine, if you've survived COVID, there were basically 2 years in life when you probably didn't have any revenue, and you've managed to get through that.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and I was like, oh shit, you have a lot of debt on the table. I don't want to touch this. Then the founders didn't stop. They said, one day they just said, hey, we're in Bombay. Can we meet? And at this point I said, come to office. Let's meet.
Yeah.
And chatted. And that half an hour meeting became a 2-hour meeting, became we've invested in them now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Right? That's interesting. But that's what I'm trying to say, Avik. Like, why are we so over-reliant on warm intros? Like, I understand doing reference checks, right? Somebody comes to you, you don't know them, you want to ask around, that's different. Why, like a lot of VCs say that, we need warm intros from our podcasts for you to come and speak to us.
It's a very normal kind of concept.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand from a founder perspective, why?
It's one part of it is just cognitive overload. The sheer amount of companies that are coming to you, like being pushed at you. Like you're just looking for any tiny little signal that could give you, the barest sense. Okay, I need to show you something.
Yeah.
They are like my DMs. People, I'm just going to give you like some sense of folks who are coming to me on a daily basis. These are some of the messages that we keep getting.
I read out some of them.
It's almost irrational when some of these folks reach out. I need to find like a particular.
Okay.
Just like a soft pav goes with spicy missile, Dash Company will be the pav to your missile-y Riverwalk. This is literally an opening pitch.
I think that's creative.
We have launched MVP, potential market of 24 billion pre-launch and 800 billion globally. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, did 1 minute of Google on the side came back? No. No. Maybe 2 billion domestically, maybe 10, 50, 20 globally, first of all. Then look, okay, let's go to founder story. I need to shift to another one because I just found another one.
Yeah.
And this is where I love your thought process of yes, young founders are there. I am the 13-year-old founder of, and you can see the little chat GPT hashtag there in the building the message. We are building a quantum inspired memory system for AI that powers an emotionally connected chatbot capable of true long-term intelligence without relying on external APIs. You're telling me that you've invented real sentient artificial intelligence at the age of 13. You shouldn't be talking to me. You should be applying to OpenAI.
Yeah, but I mean, did you speak to them?
I did not.
Why?
Because it's not going to happen.
But isn't that the antithesis of, again, VC? At least give it a shot, no? How do you know?
Fair point.
Did you have an oversmart analyst talk to them?
I took the recent bet that a 13-year-old wonder kid technologist has not popped up suddenly.
Fair. But, here's the thing. Like, somebody who has that dream, assuming they have the work ethic, etc., to really see it through, for all you know, they could make it happen when they're 23 or when they're 24, right?
So,
isn't that somebody you want on your radar?
So, there was a founder in the US who made waves that they suddenly raised, I think, $1 million or $2 million at the age of 15 or 16. Now, what people were ignoring was that founder from age 12 had been building businesses, and that business that got funded, that founder at age 15 was almost expelled from school for taking sales calls in the bathroom and had already hit a decent sales number. So, which is where I came from story to, like, if you come to me in a pitch and say, hey, I got expelled from school, but I just landed a 50K contract with this customer, I mean, let's talk.
I can imagine like as an Indian, I have to ask, okay, what were the parents of that kid's thing? Like that kid thing, right? You've been expelled from school for taking sales calls.
In the bathroom.
In the bathroom, like.
And you made the sale.
Do you be happy? Do you be sad?
I'd be happy.
That's the VC in you talking, right? Think like a parent.
I don't know. I mean, my conclusion would be the education system needs to buck up.
That it has.
And it's happening here.
Yeah.
I've spoken to some founders and folks who want, like founders who've built in college, and their colleges have been open enough to give them an open-ended, or sometimes it's a 1 year, sometimes a 2 year sabbatical where they say, hey, you will continue exactly where you left off if the experiment doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that change happen slowly in India, and it's quite cool.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things which I see in the younger founders, which sometimes the more experienced founders lack, is just, they're willing to go and talk to anybody.
I have to pull out one more.
Yeah.
I will pull out one more. I just remembered this. Okay. Oh, this is great. I am looking to raise funds. This is the idea. There are two pieces, tech and actual real estate, draining the swamp and getting this in action. My response, thank you, we are growth stage investors. This would be too early for us. The founder's response, did I ask for funding? It gets better. I was like, hey, you literally messaged me saying, I am looking to raise funds. The founder's reply, it is called ego play. Attack the ego, get a response.
Smart founder.
Fair enough. I'm like,
Avik, now your DMs are going to be flooded with people attacking your ego.
oh God.
Are you ready for this?
Bring it.
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? Like, would an experienced founder, the one that, the blue-eyed boy of the VC community, would they do this ever?
No.
And that's why sometimes I think backing the younger guys would.
So, I get that you're trying to shoot every shot that you can. But my problem here is that my investment thesis is written publicly.
Yeah.
It's openly called out. What I invest in, what I'm looking for, who I want to back is publicly called out. The fact that you're sending me this message, hoping to get funding from me, while being too lazy to read the playbook that I've copied from a US VC saying this is how you approach me and this is how you raise funds from me, tells me that you are an idiot.
But it doesn't matter for the founder.
Doesn't matter to me either. I'm not funding you.
But exactly, right? Like, I mean, think about it. It's like the job market. Right? You just apply to, like, a lot of people apply to like 1,000 places and then they look at the JD once they get the interview.
Each to their own.
Each to their own. It's not that I agree with it. All I'm saying is sometimes it doesn't hurt to take those shots.
Yeah, and I just give you an example where I took that shot and we invested.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you're coming with sense and sensibility.
No, makes sense. Makes sense. But I want to also, I know that you are not the biggest believer in the younger founder, etc. But what can we do in terms of building infrastructure to make more of these younger folks understand what VC is? Whether I need VC funding or not, right? Whether that person needs VC funding or not.
You know, you've actually knocked on like a door that I was hoping you would open.
Yeah.
Every business doesn't need VC funding. Every business should not be chasing VC
Most
funding.
businesses
Most
don't need it.
businesses don't.
Yeah.
It is an outlier kind of concept where you are literally betting the home, the farm, your shirt on and your company on the fact that this business is going to explode like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, you're not going to get any more money. Then
Yeah.
hopefully you can turn it into a profitable business. If not, that company
Yeah.
gets sold for pieces. It's so important to realize, and I understand, like, you know, we are in a market where unfortunately we are capital starved.
Yeah.
We have a whole bunch of policies that should give out loans. They don't get followed. You go and try applying for one of those startup loans. Good luck. So many folks have tried to do that.
Yeah.
They have just come back and said, "Sir, nahi mil raha."
Yeah.
And it's not happening. So that is the infrastructure that we have to fix. We have to make sure that folks who want to pursue entrepreneurship at a young age, want to build basic businesses, should have access to some capital. And that doesn't mean VC capital. That means access to, let's say, some government-backed debt, some overdraft facilities which are not linked to, collateral, that you don't have to give up something suddenly. That risk appetite is absent today.
Yeah. I think also just people working at startups, right?
Yes. You want to go and build something? Go. You're 21.
Yeah.
You want to build something and you have like that path. I'm 25. I want to build. Brilliant. Go work at a startup for 3-4 years. Go see what it takes. Work in a founder's office role. These roles are beautiful and they're coming up where you get to kind of shadow the founder. You are being his EA, her EA, but yes, go be that EA. Go literally take notes, sit in every meeting, do the minutes, build those horrible models that today nobody wants to spend time building,
Yeah.
but go and build them and learn. And then when you come out of that, see what it takes to kind of do accounting, see what it takes to create marketing strategies when you don't know anything about it. And once you've done all of that, get out and say, I want to build.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like today, a lot of startups complain about this. They're like, when we have a good candidate there, the second we are placed against the JP Morgan, they're not joining us, right? But this is not the case in a lot of other countries, right? Where people are like, oh, if I want to build, I want to go into a startup and learn how it's done. I just think that narrative needs to be out there a lot more.
And I think that also requires our Indian corporates, which are changing, slowly changing.
Yeah.
You need to accept the fact that you may get a candidate who doesn't come from 10 years of Citi or of X or Y, but has spent 10 years building, has worked in a startup, maybe been a founder, possibly failed, and has come out of that and said, hey, we want to come back and for whatever reason we have to come back into the corporate space. And if we create a room, if we create like a landing pad for these folks who come with a lot of experience, and we bring them into corporates to kind of speed that development up, bring a little bit of that startup flavor and culture in, that would just make a lot more people pick the risky path early.
In fact, I think that would be a great topic which I'd like to unpack just as we wind this up. Is that what are, as a VC, and especially for VC funded founders, what are the fallbacks if the company doesn't work? I know you don't like to talk about it, but yes, odds are that the company may not work. Odds are that you will not be the founder of this company for too much longer. What are some of the best fallbacks for these folks?
Good question. My first best fallback that I've seen a lot of these folks do is get absorbed into a, let's say, a more mature startup.
Yeah.
Because that's where the respect for their skill set is very, very clear. The second is you are seeing corporate innovation arms kind of developing where people are saying, hey, you know what, we want somebody who's built in this space.
Yeah.
Let's say you can come and try and build something like that with our wonderful large corporate backing and kind of a rollout plan. Beyond that, I don't see too many soft landings. I don't see a lot of corporations saying, hey, apart from my cool innovation team, I'm just going to bring you back into my normal team. Like, I don't see that happening.
I almost thought you were going to say micro VC fund. All right, on that note, this has been fun and we shall talk again soon.
Superb.